We're going to kick off our second hour, as we do every week, with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Sully, how are you?
Quick question before we get to high school sports. Do you have any idea what fish smack and chartreuse lures are?
No.
We listened to the Rack and Fin radio show here before we get started, so.
Well, I'm a land lover, so there you go. I love cement.
That guy's a nut, man. I don't know what he's talking about half the time. The other week I was running in here and he's talking about squirrels and hunting squirrels. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, the more cement that surrounds me, the more comfortable I feel. So I wouldn't know about any of that stuff.
Mike, you and I were down at Ocean City last night watching St. Augustine Prep beat the Red Raiders 38-6. What was your impression of that game? I was really impressed with quarterback Chris Allen. We just talked to Coach Lancetta about him, and he had that really bad game against St. Joe through 4 picks, and came back really strong the last 2 weeks and showed a lot of maturity on his part. He's a great young man, and to have a quarterback tell you, hey guys, that's on me. I'm going to do a lot better the rest of the way. That's got to give a lot of confidence to the rest of the players.
Yeah, I mean, what I take out of that game last night is I think St. Augustine, after a start, it seems weird. They played 5 games, and it seems like the season just started. But, they played every week so far. And they're finally, I think, kind of headed in the right direction. I said to Coach Lancetta after the game last night, you feel like you guys are rolling now. He goes, I don't know about rolling, but they do have some momentum, because before they won 2 in a row now. They're a game over 500. Before Friday night, they had kind of won 1, lost 1. And I thought they were impressive last night. They used the big play. Jalen DeCato, returns that opening kickoff, 50-something yards. Next play, Nazir Hill, freshman running back who actually, came to St. Augustine as a quarterback, fills in at running back because of some injuries. He has a big game, scores a touchdown there, runs for 115 yards, and St. Augustine wins 38-6, and now they're 3-2, heading up to Rancocas Valley next Friday night for what is a very big game. And on the flip side, I think although the score was 38-6, it didn't seem like a 38-6 game. I mean, Ocean City was able to move the football. Quarterback Ian Ungst, I think he set a school record for attempts and completions. And I think Ocean City, they're 3-1 now and off this week. But I think they can take a lot of positives out of the game. I think, with Ungst and Brandon Lashley at wide receiver had a standout game. And, so I think there's a lot of positives for both teams to take out of the game.
That kid, man, Lashley, he might be one of the most underrated receivers in South Jersey. That kid can make some incredible catches. I mean, you saw that touchdown catch, goes up over 2 defenders, catches it with one hand, comes back, slams his back on the ground. He's down for a couple of minutes, but what a tough kid, man.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned one of the underrated receivers in South Jersey. I'll go one step further and say maybe one of the more underrated athletes in South Jersey. Let's not forget his exploits on the pitching mound, where he was kind of overshadowed last spring by Dan Noonan of Ocean City. Of course, got drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, but last year's going to be one of the top pitchers in South Jersey in the spring. And, and this fall, he's proven to be one of the top receivers and defensive backs in all of South Jersey. So, I'd go one step further and say one of the more underrated athletes in South Jersey.
Yeah, he had 16 strikeouts against Seneca.
Right, in that playoff game there, and I think he had another game where he had, into the teens and pitched well all season, plays shortstop for Ocean City when he's not pitching. So, just a tremendous athlete.
Mike, give me some of your other takeaways from last night. Seems like Vineland and Millville are kind of on the rebound. Really tough loss for Mainland. Clearview scores in the final 15 seconds to score a 24-17 win. What are some of your takeaways? That Independence division, we've been talking about that the last couple of weeks, and really I think Oakcrest kind of controls that whole division when you look at it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Oakcrest plays Middle Township today. That's not a division game, but obviously Oakcrest and Middle Township, both if they want to, enhance their playoff hopes, that's a big game for them. And I think Oakcrest has Mainland Regional next Friday night on Wall of Fame night out at Oakcrest. So that's a game that'll go a long way before deciding that Independence division. And, of course, Ocean City still has games upcoming with Mainland and Oakcrest, so we're still going to see that Independence division play out. The other thing that struck me about last night is, the sophomore running back, Jaden Abrams of Hamilton. Hamilton now at 2-3. You can see them sort of righting their season a little bit. They won 2 out of their last 3 games. Jaden, runs for nearly 300 yards, scores 3 touchdowns. He had a very good game against Holy Spirit last Friday night. The Holy Spirit won that game against Hamilton. So now, and 2 weeks ago, he was great against Shawnee. I think he had 270 yards. So now that's twice in the last 3 weeks. He's almost run for 300 yards in a game. I think he's kind of established himself as a player to watch as a sophomore out there in Hamilton. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the Blue Devils season sort of unfolds.
Mike, what do you make of Buna? They've been off to a great start, got a 40-12 win over Lindenwold. Kind of one of those Group 1, Group 2 teams that we should probably be keeping an eye on, right?
Yeah, I did a story on that was in the Press of Atlantic City, I believe, on Monday, and it's on pressofAC.com. You can still find it if you Google it right there, where I talked about Buna. Kind of a unique situation at Buna, always known as kind of a football school, but they were traditionally one of those Group 2 teams like a Haddonfield, West Deptford. You thought of Group 2 football, you thought of Buna. Well, the past couple of years, enrollment in the school has dropped. If you talk to the people at Buna, they'll say the opening of ACIT. A lot of students who normally would have gone to Buna now go to ACIT. And Buna has become a Group 1 football team. It's caused some adjustments to the program, and that's what the story I did was about. Talked to Coach Jonathan Caputo about it, and quarterback and defensive back Luke Santiago. And Luke Santiago had a great quote in the story. Said, we beat each other up at practice during the week, and then on Friday night we go out and take it out on somebody else. And they did that with Lindenwold last night. They don't have I think they have 25, 26 players on the roster, but they've got some talented. Santiago at quarterback. They've got, some depth at running back, Chris Dowdy being one excellent running back for them. And, they're 4-0 and really have established themselves as a Group 1 contender, a Group 1 team to watch. And sometimes they're overlooked because, the Cape Atlantic League area, the traditional Cape Atlantic League area, doesn't have a lot of Group 1 football teams. I mean, they're the only Group 1 football team in Atlantic County, so they're kind of easy to overlook. But in that story that I wrote, Luke Santiago said he thinks, Buna has something special going, and it continued Friday night.
Talk with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, a couple of really big games on the slate for today. First, I wanted to touch on Pleasantville at Cedar Creek. I mean, they're going to be some serious athletes on this field. How do you see this thing playing out?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'll be headed out to Egg Harbor City, out by Route 561, down the parkway out Route 561, Egg Harbor City, to watch this game myself. To me, this is a Group 2 playoff game. I think the winner of this game is going to get in the Group 2 playoffs. I think the loser of this game might have to struggle. It's a key game for both teams. I mean, Cedar Creek needs a win. They're 2-2. They played a tough schedule. They come off that 59-37 loss to Woodrow Wilson and Nick Karchman, watching him throw for a state record. And you've got a Pleasantville team, that's going to answer some questions today. We're going to find out a little bit about the Pleasantville Greyhounds today. They opened with Haddonfield. They played well. They lost the game 20-7. Since then, they've done what they've had to do. They've won 3 straight games against teams that, let's face it, no insult or disrespect to those teams, but those are 3 games that Pleasantville should have won. So we'll see, kind of what the Greyhounds have today. And like you said, there's athletes everywhere. Samir Jones, Muhammad Torrey for, Elijah Glover for Pleasantville. On the other side, it's Louis Barrios, Kamal Reed, Malachi Melton for Cedar Creek. It's a good local game between 2 Group 2 teams, and I think the winner of this game, is going to end up in the Group 2 playoffs, and the loser is going to have to do some work.
I got to believe there's going to be some chirping going on at that game. I mean, these guys grow up together, playing against each other, knocking heads. Some of them probably even work out together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a big game. I know it's going to have a playoff-like atmosphere, I said, because there's a lot at stake. It seems weird that it's not even October yet, and there's a lot at stake. But, this game could determine both teams' playoff futures. And,
Mike, probably the biggest game in South Jersey this week, Haddonfield going up against St. Joe. Haddonfield might be the one team on the regular season schedule that can really give them problems. It's an underrated team. They got a really sound, solid defense, and they could do some things offensively with the Foley boys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, Jay Foley at quarterback. I think Haddonfield's got a pretty good offense. Chris Brown at running back. They've got a good wide receiver. That's the thing I'm interested in there. What problems will Haddonfield cause for St. Joe offensively? Will they be able to run the football against St. Joe's defensive line of Wisdom Quashie, Sean Morris, Brad Lomax, Bobby Hyman, those guys? Will Holy Spirit be able to defend the pass? I got to believe that Haddonfield's going to come out and look to throw the ball a little bit. And on the flip side of it, can Haddonfield slow down the St. Joe offense? And Jada Byers, who's rushed for more than 800 yards and scored 17 touchdowns, and we've talked about his exploits the first 4 weeks of the season. So I think it's a real interesting matchup there. Which defense could slow the other offense down. And it's a great game. Haddonfield, the defending South Jersey Group 2 champion, ranked high in our Press Elite 11 against the team that everybody kind of acknowledges as the number one team in South Jersey in St. Joe.
And, Mike, Nick Costco and I were talking earlier in the show about what Haddonfield needs to do. I think they have to be at least somewhat committed to the run. Even if you're not going to gain a lot of yards, you have to at least give it a shot so that you can maybe open up some of those passing lanes.
Well, unless you're Woodrow Wilson and you've got Nick Carjamin back there, I think it's hard to beat. It's hard for a high school football team to just step on the field and say, we're going to sling it 60 times today and win the football game. So I think you're right. I think you're going to have to run the football to win the football game. You might not have to run it for 300 yards, but, let's put it like this. If Haddonfield rushes for 100 yards in the game, I think, they've got a very good shot. If they don't rush for 100 yards, if they rush, for less than 50 yards, then I think, it's going to be St. Joe's day. So I think you're right. The rushing total of Haddonfield could tell the story in addition to the scoreboard out there in Hamilton today.
Mike, give us a little sprinkling before you go of some other sports. I know you're a big cross-country guy. What's coming up? I know we're coming up on championship season here in October. Give us some things to look out for in the non-football realm.
Yeah, I mean, you look at cross-country today, you've got the South Jersey Open out at Delsea Regional. And Delsea, of course, is where the South Jersey sectionals are held. So today you kind of get a chance for the runners of South Jersey to sort of gauge where they are on the Delsea course, basically. And of course, the Ocean City girls have had a tremendous season so far in the cross country, and we're getting to that point now, October into November, where the cross country season really picks up. But today is one of those meets. You have the South Jersey Open at Delsea. You've got the Shore Coaches Invitational coming up at Homedale in a couple of weeks, where runners can get on these courses that are the championship courses. They get on them now early in the season, really gauge their progress and see where they are and see how they can, kind of use that as a measuring stick to sort of plan out the rest of their season.
What's on tap for fifth grade basketball? You guys in preseason yet or what?
We are in preseason practices. It's up to seventh grade basketball now.
Okay.
We're just starting out with preseason practices, and season kicks off the beginning of November. So we'll be you have to have a few extra Diet Cokes us in the morning to sort of deal with us once that starts up.
Have you had your media day yet?
No media day yet. No media day yet. We try to keep the media days to a minimum. We're pizza days instead.
Oh, before you go, Mike, what's your impression of Gritty, the new Flyers mascot? You are you in or out on that?
He's
kind of growing on me.
Fan of anything that orange, so but who knows? Who knows? I'm not a hockey guy anyway, so I really can't devote a lot of time to it. In the mid '90s. I got married, I had 2 kids, and I had to let a sport go, and hockey was the one I set adrift. So,
well, hey, come on! It's the talk of social media the last week.
It is. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that it's a perfect analogy for the world today when a mascot like that turns social media and so many people, mind sideways.
It has like its own Twitter handle, like I'm with Gritty or something like that.
Right. I'll support it and see how it works out. I think you got to give everything a try. Give it a season, and we'll review it. Next May, basically.
It's the weirdest combination of creepy and funny I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, let's see. I guess it has debuted at preseason games or whatever, but let's see how it does on a cold night in February when the Boston Bruins are in town and the Flyers need to win a game. Let's see how Gritty does then, and so I'll reserve my judgment for the crux of the regular season. I don't think it's fair to judge mascots, players, or coaches on the preseason.
Good stuff as always, Mike. We appreciate it, man. See you out there today at Cedar Creek.
All right, we'll see you later. Thanks, Sully. Anytime.